morning, everybody. Welcome to the Portage County Business Council. We're glad to have you here. We want to thank the candidates for taking time out of their busy schedules to share a few of their thoughts this morning about the race for school board in Stevens Point. We want to thank Community TV for being here this morning, Channel 984. They're going to be playing this throughout, so if people can't make it this morning, they can certainly watch it. We also want to let you know that on Thursday, March 14th, next week, at the Portage County Annex on Strongs Avenue in Conference Room 1 and 2, that's on the main floor, the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point area are conducting a couple candidate forums, one at 5:30 in City Council, for the City Council districts where there are candidates opposing each other, and then at 7 p.m. the school district candidates will have another opportunity to share. So a lot of good opportunities to get to know our candidates for this important election coming up. I would ask you that if you have a cell phone, and I think probably just about everybody does, if you put it on mute or vibrate so we don't have any of that sort of distractions. I don't think this is a controversial conversation we're going to have. Sometimes we get, opposing parties in this room, so I always tell people just make sure we respect all the candidates and their views. We do have two of our board members here. Craig Gerlach is here. He's the superintendent of schools. Candace Taylor from Associated Bank is here, so we're glad to have some of our board members here this morning. So I'm going to be Todd the timer. So I've got my little. You're going to have 2 minutes for each answer, and I've got a 30-second, and I've got a end of time. So when you see the red one, you don't have to like fall off your chair, but kind of wrap up your comment or your thought. You'll get a feel for it. But we're going to allow 2 minutes for each answer. One of our candidates, Jordy Renfro, was planning on being here this morning. Her husband's family had a medical emergency, so she wasn't able to be here, so she wanted to make sure that let you know that she did in fact want to be here. We also put some some really good materials on your table settings. One is our calendar of all the different events that we do throughout the course of the year. Another one is our relocation guide, Everything Points Here, the magazine. And those are available for the business community to use and give to prospective employees or have in their lobbies for visitors, whatever the case might be. And we also have a card promoting our new website, everythingpointshere.com, which is our talent attraction website. And there's even a cute little magnet on the other side if you want to stick it on your fridge. But basically it's a promotional piece. And we'll actually have these here at the post-secondary night next week that the school district is hosting. So, all right, I think I've got all the public service announcements in. What we will do is we'll start in alphabetical order, and having been a former educator, that would be Jeffrey Ebel would start on the end down there. Jeff, we'll give you 2 minutes to do an opening statement. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. I'm Jeff Ebel. I'm from Stevens Point here, born and raised a family here and 2 children that went through the public education system and did quite well. My daughter is a doctor, my son is an electromechanical engineer. I am interested on being on the board for the things that I can bring, the experience that I've had in life. I was a business owner. I've had a 35-year career in the woodworking industry, had my own business for 18 years, successfully exited the business in 2007. And I've also dedicated myself to continuing education in leadership and in communication with my involvement with the Toastmaster program, also as a graduate of Leadership Portage County and as a graduate of Leadership Wisconsin, which is the state program. And again, what I bring to the board is my experience in strategic planning, articulating visions for organizations and just organizing in general. When I got on the board 6 years ago, we were in somewhat of a disarray, but I think the work that we've done in the last 6 years has been very fruitful. Again, starting I think about 3 years ago with the strategic planning to provide a direction for the district, which was very well executed. We have now a guiding document that kind of guides our decision making it much easier and more effective to focus on, and also to measure the effects of the decisions that we make. So I have enjoyed my terms on the school board, and I'm looking forward to serving you on one more term for the school board.
Jeff, you're a good role model. That was exactly 2 minutes, 0.52 seconds, so that's excellent.
I went over.
Right on the head. G, go ahead.
Okay, my name is G. Pope. I'm a retired teacher. I've lived here for 35 years. All three of my boys came through the school system, and they're in their mid-30s now. I taught chemistry at SPASH for 20 years, and after that I retired, and then I taught for 6 years at UWSP, chemistry for freshmen, and now I'm a student teacher supervisor for them. So I get into a lot of schools. I get into dozens of schools every year and get to see what's going on and keeping track of what's happening around the state. I've been in schools from Marinette all the way down to Oshkosh and from Manitowoc to Eau Claire. So then when I'm there, I do a little snooping and I see what's going on in other school districts. The reason that I'm running right now, there are four things. One of the main things is, we had a referendum that passed recently, which was a huge success because we really needed it, but we had to borrow the money to do it. So when we say we're making repairs and for, I think the number was $75 million, it's really going to cost us a lot more than that. And I think we did everything we could. The school board's done a wonderful job, but it's going to cost us a lot of money in borrowing the money and the interest. And I want to see that we can do it better. Given the experience that we've had, I think we can do it so we can save that money. The other things I want to look at, you know that we are the lowest cost in the central Wisconsin area for comparable costs for students amongst comparable schools, which I think is pretty bad. We currently it costs us $11,600 per student, and the state average is $13,100. And I'm wondering, are we starving our schools? Are we not giving them the money to maintain their facilities? Okay, I see it. I'm done.
Okay, you'll have more opportunities. Thank you. All right, next, Barb.
Good morning. I'm Barb Portson. I have lived in Plover, Stevens Point area for 45 years. I went to college up here and just hung around. I taught for 33 years at Pacelli High School for 6, and then on to Mid-State Technical College for another 27. So I retired in 2008 and have spent the majority of my time playing with grandchildren. I have 2 sons that went through the school system here. I have 5 grandkids. I'm currently on the board. I'm just finishing up my first term, and I have loved every minute of it. It wasn't something that 20 years ago I ever thought that I would be doing, but I think I found it. I most enjoy going into the elementary schools. Now, I wasn't an elementary teacher, but those are my best things to do. I get invited to read in the classrooms or volunteer. I worked at the book fair the other day at Roosevelt, and I love doing those things. I love to support the teachers. I think that we need to get the teachers some help, because if you haven't heard, it's rough in there. And so they definitely need some help. The students' social emotional health needs to be addressed, and we've been doing that already. So I am looking forward to another term if I get that opportunity. I'm retired, I have plenty of time, and I would appreciate any support.
Thanks, Barb. Great. All right, Kurt.
Hi, I'm Kurt Povermacher. So thank you to Portage County Business Council for hosting everybody showing up. I have lived in Stevens Point for about 9 years now with my wife Jean. We moved here from Madison. We actually both work remotely, so we choose to live in Stevens Point not because we're brought here for jobs. My in-laws do live here, but we live here because it's a community that we think it's a nice place to raise a family, and so we're very pleased with the community. We're excited about what the schools can do, but we'd like to see the schools be able to continue to do more. So I think the school board has had some tough situations to deal with and has been navigating those as best they can. I'd like to continue to see that push forward. I read an interesting quote lately by John Dewey. He said, "Democracy has to be born anew every generation, and education is its midwife." And I think that's a very wise statement. I'm a little bit concerned that sometimes short-term budget crunches will hurt the education that we can deliver to our children. And we can't afford to miss out on a few years of education for our children. It needs to be consistently and needs to be strong year after year, and it needs to be improving. And unfortunately, money is part of that equation, and we need to be able to best do what we can to manage for that. So I have been on the Business Services Committee for almost 2 years now, so I have a little bit of understanding of how the board works, how the committees work. What I would bring to the board is I have a business background, so the ability to evaluate things on their financial basis, making strong financial decisions. Also working with public boards in the past in my professional life, so I've worked with a number of boards. I understand as a board member that I'm there to listen to information and be able to make decisions based on other experts' input. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Kurt. All right, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out, you all, this morning. My name is Ann Va. I am a longtime resident of Stevens Point. I was not born here. However, my parents did move here from Minnesota when I was 6 months old. So I've been here for over 30 years. My husband and I have 6 children, and 5 of those are attending the Stevens Point School District. They range from high school to elementary. So I know how tough it really is for teachers. Our slogan here is actually happy teachers, happy teachers, I'm so sorry, this is my first time publicly speaking. Happy teachers, healthy children, bright futures. So I chose to stay here in the Stevens Point school areas because going through school, I actually had 2 staff members of the Stevens Point School District who really made an impact on me. The first one is Lois Coase. I believe she's retired now, but she was a teacher for me over at PJ Jacobs and then at SPASH, and she always made it a point to interact with me and every other student and really get to know them. You can walk in and she'll be like, "Oh, so how was this project that you were working on?" Even if it wasn't school related. She really helps us there. She also helps us with college applications or real-life scenarios where we don't get that class specifically in the school system. Another person is Mrs. Young. She was a guidance counselor, again, at PJ Jacobs and then at SPASH. There was an incident where I felt uncomfortable and I was upset, and she really helped me through it. I'm sorry. Again, I want to be on this board because I work with the youth in the community, and I have seen I have heard what they want and what they need to succeed, and what they are looking for. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Ann, very good. So now you have a feel for how it's going to work, right? And the next question, we'll start with G, and then the one after that with Barb, so everybody had the chance to be the first one and the last one, so we're trying to be very politically correct there and not favor anybody. Also, in the audience, I also have a pad of paper on your tables. If you want to, if you have a question you'd like to have asked, you want to slip it to me. If we have time at the end, we can ask some questions from the audience, so feel free to write it down and slip it to me. So, the next question, then, we'll start with G, is, so business, government, education, and for all of us personally, we all have limited resources. How will you decide what the priorities are for the school district within its budget and resources?
Okay, first of all, from the education standpoint, let me back up a second. I was interviewing with the business manager a couple weeks ago, and we went through a bunch of the money things and so forth. And then at the end, he asked me a really good question. He says, we have all this stuff going on, but do you think we're teaching kids and that they're learning in Stevens Point? But that was a great point. We are. From the education standpoint, I think we're one of the best school districts around. What I was looking at was the financial part of it. Again, as I said earlier, we just borrowed a bunch of money. we're gonna be paying back, by my calculations, about $48 million in interest over 20 years. And that's not to blame anybody. We had to do that. If we didn't do that, we would be in really deep trouble as far as maintaining our facilities. What I'm looking at is, what can we do the next cycle? We need to determine how much money does it take to keep our facilities in good shape. And we need to plan ahead for that. And that's not to say we didn't. We had a failed referendum that really cost us, and it cost us $48 million over 20 years. So that's one of the main things I'm looking at. Plus the fact that our cost is so low, it's embarrassingly low per student. And we got there through a myriad of things that have happened in the last few decades. So that's what I'm looking at is how can we fix that? How can we, why are we paying so much less than comparable school districts? For instance, DC Everest, they pay $1,000 more per student than we do. Why? They can do it, and they're very comparable to us. So those are the things I want to examine.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll repeat the question for each candidate, just so you know that. So Barb, businesses, government, education, and each of us individually all have limited resources. How will you decide what the priorities are for the school district within its budget and resources?
I think we've had some experience in that vein in the last couple of 2 or 3 years. We have some terrific administrators, and they work hard, and they work well together. And I think part of the board's actions were due to the fact that they came to us, they presented what their needs are. They had done the hard work. And if we're in the schools enough, we see what happens. But I had the opportunity last summer to tour, well, I toured a lot of the buildings, but I toured PJ's for the first time, and that was an eye-opener. I couldn't tell you. I think I didn't sleep for days. But I think we need to trust our administrators. Once you are in a good group like this, I think you trust them. You have to have that trust that they know what's best for each of their buildings. And no one knows Spash better than John Vollendorf, and nobody knows McDill better than Jean. So we rely on our leaders to guide us. And then, of course, I get feedback from the community. And I'm out and about. I'm pretty social. And so I enjoy getting out there and finding out what the teachers think, what the staff thinks, and what the parents think.
Great, thanks, Barb. All right, Kurt, businesses, government, education, and all of us personally have limited resources. How will you decide what the priorities are for the school district within its budget and resources?
So I guess this has been a reoccurring theme for me, but I think that the top priorities are hiring and retaining top talent and improving student-to-teacher ratios. So our teachers, our education is only as good as the people that deliver it. And if I'm a teacher and I'm comparing districts, how much money I make is definitely going to be a strong factor in which district I choose to work for. I also understand, though, that the district has its hands tied. It's largely steered by a funding formula that's at the state level, and how much money it receives from the state strongly influences what budget it has available. So there is a limited budget there. We can't just spend as much money as we want. We're spending less money than other districts, not necessarily because of commitment in this community. To a certain extent, yes, but there's also things that we're battling at a state level. So we know that we have to overcome that, and we need to then be creative in seeking ways to try to improve what we can offer teachers to be able to get the best teachers. We also need to be able to try to improve student-to-teacher ratios. Most information that I see is, there's an optimum number that we need to be at or that you don't want to exceed for students to teachers. That number has been growing in the district over the years. I'd like to see us find out what that optimum is and try to develop a plan to work back towards that. And then these are all this takes money. So what it means is that we have to manage our other resources to be able to try to free up as many dollars as possible to try to keep that talent. I think the teachers work very hard. I think that they also they understand this is it's a competitive workforce, and they're going to go to places that might have a better option for them, or they might not even go into the workforce as a teacher. So I want to keep those as my top priorities at the district.
Great, thanks, Bert. And businesses, government, education, and all of us individually have limited resources. How will you decide what the priorities are for the school district within its budget and resources?
One of the reasons why I would like to be on school board is because of the lack of mental health that I see in school or I don't see in school. I was speaking to a couple of youth, and one had mentioned that she had received some counseling before, but she felt that she wasn't listened to and that nothing really was completed for her. I spoke to a couple of youth from SPASH, and they had indicated that yes, there's a counselor on site, and they're encouraged to use a counselor. However, they don't even know where the office is located. Looking at the stats here of the youth risk report, for Portage County, 17.8% considered suicide during the 12 months before their survey was given. So knowing that we talk about mental health, but we don't pursue it and we don't push it on the children and say, yes, these are resources. We have this here for you. This is what we do. We refer you. We follow up with you. We make sure that you are getting the help that you're needing, and that we have that cultural competency with it. Here, I know of the youth who are they're Hmong, and we don't have the counselors or they need the necessary mental health navigation that we need for our culture-specific students. Another one is just like what Kurt said, we really need to retain the talent that we have here with our teachers. The cost of living for here is, the survival budget is at $63,444. The average teacher's income is $43,341. When I say retain talents, I don't just mean teachers. I'm looking at the staff as well. I know a couple of educators' assistants in the school district, and when we have school days, they are not being paid. What can we do to make it so that they are still earning a living wage so that they're not working two jobs just to survive in Stevens Point?
Thank you, Ann. Jeff, business, government, education, and each of us individually have limited resources. How will you decide what the priorities are for the school district within its budget and resources?
The school district's priorities are not my priorities. We spent a good deal of time a few years ago creating a strategic plan, which really gives us a foundation and outlines what the priorities for the district are. It's easy to get carried away in the problem of the day, but with a document like we created through the process of strategic planning, it gives us a solid foundation to look forward to. We do have to address those things, the immediate things as they come up. They will continue to do that, but I believe we put in place a very effective method and structure to be able to deal with those. I agree with Barb in that the professionals that we work with in the district are outstanding. We have probably one of the best business managers in the state. He is frequently asked to give workshops and presentations for the Wisconsin Association of School Boards and other organizations involved with education. He is highly regarded in the state as one of the best business managers. So yes, we listen to him, and we take into account what our administrators are suggesting that we do, and overlay that again with the needs of the community, which is, I think, well represented by our existing board members. So it's easy to see from the outside what some of the problems are and wonder why a school district is not addressing them. School district is very aware of some of the problems that were mentioned here at this table. And they are concerns. We work with them within the structure that we've created to address those, and it keeps us from going off in different directions that may end up sapping our ability to actually carry out our strategic plan.
Great, thanks, Jeff. You're all doing a great job when I hold up that yellow sign, not freaking out, so I just want to congratulate you on that, because I would probably freeze and stumble and bumble, so thanks for that. So now we'll start with you, Barb. There are a lot of, number of business education partnerships in our community. What I'd like you to do is either, talk about some that you're aware of in our community, or what ideas do you have for other partnerships between the business community and the school community?
Well, I do know that the Portage County Business Council has the Partners in Education program. When I taught at Midstate, I was lucky enough to be asked to be on that committee for a few years. And that was really an eye-opener for me because, sometimes as teachers, we get into this we're in our building and we're doing our thing. And I had no idea all of the collaboration that was going on in our community, which was good news. I think we do a good job partnering education with the Portage County Business Council and the businesses in town. Business people are coming into our classrooms and interviewing. They're being, the program, we used to have a program and the name of it now slips my mind. But business people would come, adopt a classroom at an elementary school, and they would teach them, kind of like junior achievement, but it wasn't called junior achievement. And that was such an awesome thing. I learned a lot about that just by listening to my grands talk about it, and that was really important. One of our biggest supporters is Martin Machining, and early on in my term, I got to meet Al and Deb and realize the work that they do for our kids. And it was just so heartwarming. We are preparing their future workers. And we have to work with them, ask them, find out what their needs are, and be able to provide those needs when the time comes.
Thank you, Barb. Kurt, there's a number of business education partnerships in our community. Let us know which ones maybe you're aware of and/or what ideas you have for other partnerships.
I'd like to see this continue to grow. So, it's a global economy. Our businesses are going to compete against businesses around the world, in the state, in between communities. What makes those businesses competitive is the quality of their workforce. And so we need to continue to work with businesses to understand what they are expecting or what they need from skills from students. Do they need students that can be problem solvers? Do they need students that can be, that are great working with their hands? Do they need students that can work in teams? A lot of this stuff, there's research to show it, but it's also important to understand what is needed at the local level. I think for businesses to support schools, they need to see that there is a benefit to what the schools are providing. They want a quality workforce, and really they're getting that the public is doing that, providing that for them. For them to be public supporters of it, they need to see that they're getting that benefit. So if I'd like to continue to see us working with the businesses to find out what they're looking for, whether that's STEM skills, whatever it may be. I am interested in businesses being able to come into schools frequently to let students see what their business does, to give students an interest in potential career futures. I'd like to see the opportunity at perhaps the secondary level to be able to have a little bit almost internships for where students can come and work with businesses to get, a day at a business to see how that works. So I think it's important to continue to work with businesses and strengthen that so that businesses then are behind improvements that education wants to make.
Thank you, Kurt. And so there are a number of business education partnerships in our community. Can you share the ones maybe that you're aware of, or and/or what ideas do you have for other partnerships?
Thank you. So I know that CAP Services goes into the junior high schools and they do presentations on different topics. I know there's going to be a presentation coming up on human trafficking, domestic violence, things like that. I think partnering up with local organizations that can be teaching these important topics to our students that takes a little bit of time away from the teachers so that teachers can gather other information. It's going to be very helpful. Having people who have that knowledge to come in and do the teachings versus an extra amount of work for the teachers to research topics and having to perform that themselves. Another thing is we are currently working with, I'm actually in talks with Ms. Merchant in regards to securing a space over at SPASH for a presentation during Hmong Heritage Week. And again, I'm going back to being cultural competent and being able to offer these type of things for our students at SPASH is a really great learning opportunity. I also, part of our slogan again is Bright Futures, and I always think, what can we do to retain our students here so they complete their K through 12 here, they graduate here, they go off to college. What can we do to bring them back here and remain hopeful for students and say, hey, I want to give back to my community. What does our community have to give? And like Kurt said, working with the businesses and say, hey, internships. I know through Midstate right now, they have an internship apprenticeship program actually, and they're trying to draw in students. And I think if SPASH can coordinate with Midstate and say, hey, what can our juniors or our seniors do to get into that program or get more information, it would kind of pave the way for our students to consider staying here in our area.
Thank you, Ann. Jeff, we know there are business education partnerships out there. Which ones may you be aware of in the community, and/or what ideas do you have for other business education partnerships?
Our school district is the envy of a lot of districts in the state because of a lot of the programs and the relationships that our district has made with some of the local businesses. It was a priority when we interviewed for the last superintendent that we hired that they be involved with the community in developing those partnerships. And great credit goes to our superintendent and all of our teachers and administrators in the district for the partnerships that they've established and that they continue to grow and deepen. The Century is the one that comes out to the top, the one-to-one program. It was over $4 million, I believe, that Century provided to the school district, which was desperately needed, especially for electronic devices for the kids. But they also understand that the electronic devices doesn't do much without having the infrastructure, so they were willing to spend the money as well to update our infrastructure, the wireless hubs and things like that we need to actually make those devices effective. The apprenticeship program is, again, I think, the envy of a lot of districts throughout the state. As Barb mentioned, Martin Machining, they were recognized on the cover of the Wisconsin Association of School Boards magazine about a year and a half ago, I believe, for his work with the school district and in exposing our students to opportunities that in the community for the trades. We have allocated a certain amount of money in the capital budget to expand our technical education section at SPASH. The UW has been a great partner with AP classes. Our experiential learning, the Point of Discovery School, is very much based on the interaction between the community and the educational staff. And there are many more. I know there are a lot more that I can't think of off the top. I know that also Century has a program that helps some of our special needs kids get apprenticeships and working in those environments. So there's a lot going on, and we're very proud of what's been going on.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, Gene? So we know there's a number of business education partnerships in our community. Let us know those that you might be aware of, or what other partnerships are possible with business and education.
But, as Mr. Abel referred to, I was teaching at Spash when Century came in. It was like a godsend when they came in. So we're gonna give you, at the time, it was like $5 million. We're gonna start the kids off on computers. It was amazing, and it really, set us, I mean, we needed to do it. Everywhere I go now, every school I'm in, elementary kids all have laptop computers. It's just absolute necessity. So Century did a wonderful job there and continues to do a wonderful job with helping with our electronic needs in the school system. Years ago, we started the Stevens Point Athletic Hall of Fame. First thing we did was go out in the community and find out what kind of support there was for a high school athletic hall of fame to have the necessary honors and dinner and so forth. And we had to hold people back. I mean, there were so many people that wanted to help. One of the main ones was Joe Kinsella at Point Precision just stepped forward, and I mean, he really got in there and helped us with everything. And I think that's a community to support. I mean, we ask them for money. Then to have them come forward and to help us physically working on things like that is just tremendous. A few years ago, when I came back for a long-term sub for the lady who took my job at Spash, and I was talking to a kid in class, and I got to know him. He said he works at a fast food place. He says not much of a job, anything like that. I said, well, what do you want to do? Well, he said he wanted to work with wood. So he goes, I said, well, would it be all right to give you a part-time job in woodworking? He said, I'd love that, but I don't know where to go. So we had a guy in our school that does that. He puts people in internships in with businesses who want these kids in their class, in their business. Next thing I know, next week, he said, hey, I got a job at a wood shop. You were retired by then, so he had a wood shop, and he was working, he loved it. Now, over the years, I've lost track of him. I hope he's still working there. Maybe he's loving his work. I hope he is. So we had that available to us.
Great, thank you. So Kurt, now we'll start with you. To be the surprise first recipient of the question. So talent attraction for school district employees is critical to our community. What strategies would you use to attract and retain employees for the school district?
I think it's important to talk with the existing staff and teachers to understand what would make the district more appealing to them, what will keep them there, because I think it's very important to retain the talent we have, but then they will have insight into what the prospective employees would have that would want them to come to the district. I think we need to do a competitive analysis compared to other comparative districts to see not only is it salary, the whole benefit package, whether it includes time off, requirements of how long you have to be in the building, all those things. I'm looking for hopefully some opportunities where there can be some wins that don't cost the district necessarily some money, but there can be some increased no cost, low cost benefits to talent that wants to come to the district, whether that, like I said, whether that's educators or whether it's support staff or administration. So we need to look at that, and but it's also going to be a dollars thing. It will, and so we need to be able to manage our budget as effectively as possible. So G has mentioned that, we're going to be borrowing money to be able to do school improvements and the interest on that. Yes, we are going to be doing that. Is that wrong? Not necessarily. We need to look at everything in an economic standpoint. If we're going to be getting benefits and improving buildings for 20 years, to take out a 20-year loan to improve those, and the people that are going to be using those in 20 years are paying for them, I don't think that's a bad thing. Managing public finances is not exactly the same as managing your personal finances, and so we need to be able to assess that differently. bringing money and paying for it all up ahead of time also has an economic cost because we're bringing dollars from the past and into the future, and that's also very expensive too. So the cost is the same, or the cost is not necessarily different. We have to be able to look at that time value of money to be able to understand what is actually the cheapest way to do that. Is it to raise money ahead of time so that somebody that's never going to be able to utilize that district or that benefit pays for it, or should it be spread along a longer time so that people in the future that are going to utilize that benefit pay for it?
Thank you, Kurt. And talent attraction for school district employees is critical to our community. What strategies would you use to attract and retain employees in the school district?
We all know that salary is one of the big things right now with our teachers. And I believe that that is something that we need to review to see how competitive we are in our benefits and salary. Not only that, but I also think about what other things are we offering our educators and our staff? What types of training are we offering them so that they can better serve the families that they're working with? I'm not talking about having that day off, the administration day off. I'm talking about other trainings, such as the cultural response teaching. Can we incorporate that? And once that's incorporated, can we say, hey, we have this. So our wages are going to be competitive with the trainings that we want you to attend. The cultural responsive training is a create initiative or culturally responsive education for all initiative and enhancement. This is designed to increase statewide capacity to implement culturally responsive policies, procedures, practices, reduce achievement gaps, and eliminate race and ethnicities as predictors of special education referrals. I keep going back to other things than what we see in schools, because trainings, we see a lot of active shooter trainings. Why do we have to worry about that? Shouldn't we be more focused on other things that prevent these shootings so that we don't have to practice these drills? I remember going to school, and the one drill that we were blown out of our mind was the stranger danger. When someone came into our school, that was like, whoa, we don't know this stuff. We were used to the fire drills, the tornado drills. But why are we making it a social norm or a norm in our school systems for, again, the shooter policy? Why not? We really need to learn and prevent it from happening.
Great, thank you, Ann. Jeff, talent attraction for school district employees, is critical to our community. What strategies will you use to attract and retain teachers and staff?
Usually the first thing that people think of to attract and retain people is going to be pay and benefits. And if you look at the hierarchy of needs, that's someplace around 6 or 7. So there are a lot of things that are much more important to employees than just the pay. Matter of fact, it's hard to pay some people enough to stay in a hostile environment. They're going to go and they're going to find an environment that's more conducive to their values. So I think culture and environment are absolutely critical to maintaining our existing staff and recruiting professionals, high-level professionals. And I have seen in the last 3-4 years, I have seen a major culture shift in our school district. And that was not by accident. Changing a culture is extremely difficult, especially in a large organization the size of our school district with over 1,000 employees. It has to be well-defined. It has to be, you have to live the values and the culture that you are espousing or that you're trying to create in the district. And one of the components of that culture is continual improvement for our professionals internally. And just in the last few years, they've embarked on a professional development plan for the professionals in our district. And I am amazed at the participation of our professionals that take advantage of the educational opportunities that the school district has provided to them so that they can continue to improve not their teaching skills, but also stay abreast on some of the most current techniques in education. And just at our last committee meeting, I was sitting there in awe about the professional, high professional level of the people in our district and what they are doing to continue to address the needs of our school district and our students.
Thank you, Jeff. G, talent attraction for school district employees is critical to our community. What strategies would you use to attract and retain teachers and staff?
First of all, I'm a student teacher supervisor for UWSP. I have been for about 6 years. The student teachers I see today are far better trained than when I came through. I mean, they're incredible people. They're dedicated to their craft. If they're not, they get them out, before they go out in the schools and student teach. I know this because I help train them, I talk to them. In fact, I would say of all the student teachers I've had, the 2 best I ever had are currently working in this district. I mean, and one of them I know, I stopped by their principal's office and said, if you don't hire this person, you're crazy. And he did hire him. So that was wonderful. And the other guy I saw out on the playground last spring with a bunch of kids, the 2 best I've ever had, and they came to this district. We offer a lot. It's a wonderful place to teach. When I came here, this was the mecca of education. And I believe that our employees are still carrying that on. It's been rough times for teachers. But I still think the teachers are in there really working hard. And when you sit down and talk to them, like I have, the things they do every day for students are just incredible. The programs we have in place are incredible. And yet I go back to the fact that I think, well, how do we pay for this? How do we make people want to stay? I think they stay because they're dedicated, they like the area, but we do have to figure out a way to pay them more. And there are some ways that are coming up, and I think we have some ways to get some money out of the district. For one thing, the fact that we're the lowest cost per student in comparable schools in the area, we can raise that. We have a school sitting almost empty, and we shouldn't have that. We need to rearrange a few things so that we can make maximum use of our facilities and maybe save some money there. Definitely, though, salary, I think, to me, for most teachers, it comes down to, salary, which has been a sore spot in the last decade or so for teachers.
Thanks, Chief. Barb, talent attraction for school district employees is critical to our community. What strategies would you use to attract and retain teachers and students, or teachers and staff, excuse me?
Well, the money thing has been addressed by, I think, everyone up here. But when I took a teaching job, it wasn't about the money. It was about the health insurance. But it was about loving what I was doing. And I think in the last few months, I've been in the schools a lot. And there's a lot of burnout happening. And these teachers are having to deal with, 25 to 30 different personalities and different needs. And I think we need to get those teachers some help in the classroom. I think Kurt mentioned lower teacher-student ratio. And I know that costs money. And we don't really, all of our buildings don't have room for additional classrooms either, even though the building plan is adding some. But I think if we address some of those mental health issues of our kids, that hopefully the teachers will benefit from that because they won't be fighting 25 different battles every single day in that classroom. So I'd like to see that addressed a little bit further.
Okay. Thank you, Barb. Kurt, you were first on that one, right? So you already
Yes, I
answered.
was.
Okay, good. It's all starting to run together for me. All right, next question, Ann, we'll start with you. So if elected, you'll represent the Stevens Point School District community. How will you get input from the people you represent in the community?
How will I get input? Well, right now, again, I already work with the youth, and I do have interactions with families as well. Also, with my employment, I do presentations, or I go and talk to other youth. So I'm really already hearing what is needed and what is wanted. Other programmings, I go and I attend, and I really hear what the parents are talking about and saying, oh, I need this. I hear we talking about how laptops were provided to our students, but what we fail to realize is not every family has internet access at home. So those are things that I hear from parents already. Like, yeah, great, we have it, but when our child brings the laptop home, really they can't do anything. They can't surf the web because we don't have access to this. Other ways is really just listening and watching social media or current events. Anytime there's anything on social media, current events, there are lots of comments saying, this is what we need, this is what I want to see. So we need to get that implemented. Other ways is there's really good communication through email. I know with myself and my children's teachers, emails are effective, along with the text messages that we're getting through the district. I think it should be a two-way where if we have, as parents, we have questions or concerns or suggestions, we shouldn't have to wait until I'm going to a conference and having the teacher say, what else can I do to help you? I think it should be an open communication where we can as parents, we are able to go up and say, hey, this is what I need, this is what I want. What can we do and what needs to be done so that we can take the steps to achieve the goals that we're looking for.
Thank you, Ann. Jeff, if elected, you represent the Stevens Point School District community. How will you get input from the people you represent in the community?
Getting input as a board member is usually not difficult. Matter of fact, people are very willing and to offer their opinion on what should be done. And a lot of the input sometimes, unfortunately, is in addressing a problem that a parent would have with one of their children, or it could be someone from the community that doesn't like their most recent tax bill. They'll freely let you know that. So the challenge for us as board members is, how do we deal with that communication? And that has been a topic of ongoing discussion. We want that if there is an issue that comes before me or the board members, we want to see that it's addressed and that it's resolved. And we want to make sure that that's handled in the most appropriate way. So we're very sensitive to funneling those communications back to the people that are whose job it is to correct those. We as board members can't address everyone's issue. That is not our function as a board member. We do have people within our district that are very qualified and are positioned to be able to address those issues. So it's important as a board member to understand whose job it is, how it should be funneled, and typically it's most often funneled to the superintendent, who understands, again, the professionals within his administration that are best suited to handle that. Because I'm a member of the business community, I'm very much involved in business and the needs of business. I support a lot of the efforts that are going on. And again, you can communicate that at community meetings and at board meetings when appropriate. And again, you can present that and offer information, but ultimately the district is going to filter out all those suggestions and all that input against our strategic plan, which was developed again to be able to keep us in a very specific direction.
Thank you, Jeff. G, if elected, you'll represent the Stevens Point School District community. How will you get input from the people you represent?
First, in all the schools I go to, I talk to people all the time, and in our schools also. I think schools reach out to parents way more than parents think they actually do. They try to get a hold of parents, and of course the hardest parents to get hold of are the ones that you want to talk to the most. All the methods I see of school districts trying to communicate things with parents, I'm just amazed by it. But the question would be, how would I go about seeking input from parents? I guess I operate best as like on a personal basis, one-to-one, and I just talk to people. When I go to schools, I talk to teachers, I talk to principals, I talk to students, teachers' aides, custodians. I talk to everybody I can and find out how are things. And I know a lot of teachers here in the district, so I talk to them when I'm in their schools. So we'll put it this way. I have a neighbor. He walks by my house every day. And he stopped, and he said, "I see you're running for school board." He says, "Well, I don't want to pay any more taxes. I just wanted you to know that. Because I pay too much already, and I'm looking to move to a lower tax base somewhere." I said to him, "You won't find one. You know, I lived in the western part of the state before I moved here. This is the low tax place, right here. We're in it." So I said, "Good luck with that." And then I said, "Furthermore, if I get elected, I'm going to ask you to pay a little more." And he said, "Well, that's crazy." And I said, "Well, you can pay the bank later, or you can pay a little bit more now and save money later. You know, or you want to be penny wise and a dollar foolish, or do you want to do it a smart way?" You know, and so I talked to him. I don't know if I convinced him, but you know, that's where I find most of the things about what I want to do is, like, I just talk to individuals. And I think if you get the rather than a big meeting, if you get the individual's point of view, if you get enough of them, then you start to get a view of what people really want.
Okay, thank you, Gene. Barb, if elected, you'll represent the Stevens Point School District community. How will you get input from the people you represent?
Well, I'm kind of a social media person. So I'm on Facebook a lot. And during the referendum time, I was very active in the citizen committee for the referendum. And I was able to, I joined a group for moms. And a lot of times the moms don't get heard. They're raising their families, they're running kids around, doing all kinds of things. And whether or not if they don't probably know that I'm a school board member. But I've asked questions. When we were doing snow day makeup stuff, I said, "Here's the proposal." I gave them the link. And I had, hundreds of comments about what the proposal was from administration before I went to the board meeting that night to decide what we're going to do. And I think that's been really important for me, at least in the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months. That's been a key communication for me. Our district does a great job of communicating already. Our communication guru is here, and we do, you know, when we, meaning Craig, decides to cancel school, that word is out there. And everybody gets it at the same time. You know, I'll get calls. "Are we having school tomorrow?" Wait for the email or the text message. You know, we don't make that decision. You know, the board does policy. We don't get involved with it every day, you know, so-and-so left school early. We don't get involved with that at all. So I think I would continue, and I would obviously continue to do my volunteer work in the schools, because then I get to the teachers as well, so.
Okay. Thank you, Barb. Kurt, if elected, you'll represent the Stevens Point School District community. How will you get input from the people you represent?
So I think it's really two avenues. Everybody here has talked about their personal relationships, and that's great. I think we all need to work in our own social circles. But your social circle, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with that word, isn't the same as mine. It's not the same as Guy's. So we all have different, so the ability to say, I'm just talking to people that I know or to people that I like, I run into different people than we all rate. But that's good, because we're representatives here, and we should be representing different groups. So I think that's important, to be able to get that informal input about what's going on. And it's also important to be able to filter that, because I don't want to get into the day-to-day of what's going on at the district. I shouldn't be meddling in every decision. I shouldn't be meddling in the decision of whether a snow day is called or not. We've worked with the administration, or I'm sure the board has, and they set parameters, but everything is individual. And so if I get 3 inches of snow, but it rained, and that's different than 3 inches of snow when it doesn't, or when there's 20 miles an hour wind. And so I don't think the administration makes those decisions lightly. But I also think that you have to have the formal processes. And so I've been at the Business Services Committee, I've been to the school board meetings. I do not see many people in the community show up to those meetings. It's pretty sparse. And so people that show up are listened to, and they have an opportunity to input. I really like Ann's idea of being able to improve the communication. I think the district does a great job of sending out information. I have no qualms about ever knowing what's going on, when a day is going to be canceled, what's going on with snow makeup days, any of that kind of stuff. The information's great and it's all easily available if you want to access it. But the ability to probably get information coming back in a filtered sort of way, that's what the business services committee does. That's what the other committees do. That's what the staff does to be able to filter that down and bring it to the board. It's still nice for the board members to be able to listen to the community, but it's two-way and it's formal, it's informal, and you got to utilize both.
Great, thanks, Kurt. Before we get to the closing statements, just for the safety of our superintendent, I do want to mention he does not make those decisions on his own for snow days, so just want to let that word out there that there are many targets in the community for that. Unbelievable that what you guys have gone through, so thank you all. So now it's a chance to give your closing statements. We'll start with Jeff. We'll give you each 2 minutes again, and the floor is yours. Jeff, get us started.
Great, thank you. Serving 2 terms on the school board has been rewarding. It's very important work. I have enjoyed it. I have learned a lot in the 6 years that I have served on the board. Interestingly enough, I am the second most senior person on the board, so that's indicative of the change in the turnover that we've had in the last few years, which has been very positive. I have seen remarkable change in the culture and in the way we conduct our business. Starting with, again, the strategic plan, because, and I keep referring to that because it is our foundation. That's the document that we use to filter all the decisions. How does it help us achieve that strategic goal, the strategic plan? The process that we used to create that was exceptional in inviting members of the community from all walks of the community to provide their input. It's not what I had in mind, but again, it's not my school district, it's the community's school district. And that input gave us a really sound footing for direction, which again allowed us to go to the community and ask for money, because now we know what we need. And prior to that, again, you're going to ask. We know we needed money, but what are you going to use it for? And again, the district administration did a phenomenal job at assessing all the needs in the community, not only from facilities, but for educational needs, for professional development, for hiring and recruiting and retaining staff in the community. We passed a pay plan, which was very, very challenging, and it went through, and so a lot of the pent-up issues we've gotten past those. And now I see the sky is the limit, and I see the excitement in the district because they see the opportunities in this district to be an outstanding school district. I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Jeff. Chief?
Okay, do you mind if I use the board a second?
I don't mind.
I think better I'm an old teacher, I think better when I'm drawing on the board. The thing that got me interested in the school board was the last referendum. Now, I voted for every referendum because I think schools need money. But in the last referendum, we got a 3.5 million recurring, so that we get that every year, so we increased our budget by that much. We have about 76 million that we are borrowing to make the improvements, maintenance and things like that. By the business manager's estimates, that's going to cost us about $124 million. So that's where I get this 48 million that we're paying in interest to the bank. Now, that's nobody's fault. That just had to happen. Our community said we didn't want to pass a referendum a while ago, and that's what it cost us by not passing that referendum. Now, I didn't know that. Nobody knew that. But we have a track record now. We don't want that to happen again. So what I felt was we have to use this information to convince people that we're going to need a referendum a few years down the road once we've made the maintenance, done all the maintenance, and we need to go back and do it again. So we don't want to have this happen again, because next time it's going to be a bunch more. The other thing is we have dwindling enrollment. If you look at the enrollment figures for the first, second, kindergarten, and so forth, we're going to have less kids. So what are we gonna do with that space? I think there's an opportunity there to kind of lean our district out a little bit to get, move some programs and get rid of a couple buildings that maybe we don't need. The last thing, though, I would say is, I realize that I would be 1 in 9. I can't come in and say, do this, do that, do this. If I think it's important, it's my job to convince other well-meaning, wonderful people that want to do the job for the district that I think this is important, we should do that. If I can't convince them of that, then it probably isn't a good idea. So I would operate under the premise that the group is there for a reason, not one person, but the group. And I have to operate within those parameters because the best ideas come out of the total group. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Barb?
When I became familiar with the school board, it was after I had retired from teaching, and I decided to take a part-time job as a school board secretary. And that was a blast. You know, I taught office skills my entire career, so, you know, it was right up my alley. That was during a very, very difficult time. And after I left that position, it became clear that I wanted to be part of the board, and I have seen so much positive change. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, we wouldn't have passed this referendum. I don't think, I think the board had a weak reputation. We work very well together now. I think we all genuinely like each other, respect each other, and I would like to continue the good work that we have been doing. I won't be able to be at the next forum. My husband's making me go on vacation to Phoenix to watch baseball, which you need to know is my second love, is baseball. Again, I would hope that my record speaks for itself, and you will allow me to do another term.
Great. Thanks, Barb. Kurt?
Thank you. So I think this district has been making strides in the right direction. I don't believe it's where many in the community feel that they would like, where they would like it to end up. And so I think that the baton needs to continue to be pushed forward to improve the experience at the district. I've heard many people address mental health today. I think that's an important thing. I think that continues to need to be. All students need to have equal opportunities. We can't leave any students behind. And if we want to look at it from an economic standpoint, leaving students behind is going to cost us more than it's going to save us now in the interim. So we need to continue to do that. I appreciate Guy's interest in not wanting to borrow money. I guess I'll kind of speak to that point a little bit, that I think that I'm not afraid to borrow money if it's in the interest of the school district. I'm also not afraid to spread that cost over the future. If I am somebody that I'm in this district and I pay all this money up front for a facility that's going to last 50 years, and then I move out of that district, I paid for a facility that I never get any benefit from. And if I'm somebody that moves into that district after that money was paid for, I'm receiving a benefit for free for somebody else that paid for it. So I don't think that borrowing is as simple as my own personal finances. I wouldn't want to wait 30 years to buy my house. I'd like to be able to live in that house now. So being able to take a mortgage and be able to live there, I think can make sense. Budgeting and borrowing, that doesn't mean you can do that willy-nilly. It all has to make sense and be able to do it and make sure that you can make those payments. But I think as a board member, really, I want to be able to listen to the experts. I don't want to meddle into the details of day-to-day and get in people's way that's working on it. But I'd like to represent the community for a community that is interested in improving education and moving it forward, willing to spend the dollars, willing to want to get good teachers, retain good teachers, and good staff, and just be able to create an atmosphere where students have the best opportunity to learn so that everybody receives what they need, whether it's mental health issues, whether it's special needs, whether it's gifted and talented. I want everybody to be able to have a great opportunity within the district.
Thank you, Kurt. Ann?
All right, so when I found out that there was going to be forums, I told my team I'm scared, I'm worried because I'm not an expert. I don't know the language. I don't know the terms that are used. However, they reassured me that, be myself, and that is what I am today, being myself. We are fortunate that we are a board of members that are elected by the people. And although our skill sets are different, I believe that a board that has many, my skills different other than my skills different than other candidates, and I offer different but equally important skills. This will help round out the board's ability to respond to a range of issues. I had this whole spiel in my head, and then I started talking. I'm like, oh my God, I can't remember what I was going to say because I'm so worried about other stuff. But really coming here today, it really just showed me hey, this is a relaxed setting. Even though I'm not an expert at something, listening to what others have to say, it's yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I just couldn't put it out into words to explain it because my processing time is going to be different than the next person's. But I do really feel that I do belong on this board. We really do need a new voice on the board. And again, different set of lens to see what's going on in the district and what our community is looking for.
Great, thanks, Ann. Could you help me thank our candidates for being here? So thank you all for taking time out of your personal and business lives. We also wish the best to Joey Renfro and her husband's family. And remember, on the 14th, the League of Women Voters will be doing another opportunity with the candidates. And also thank you for Community TV for being here. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody.